The day I lost my name was the day I stopped believing in family. My name's Marcus Reed, 48 years old, co-founder of Reed Industrial Logistics, a company my father and I built out of a two-car garage in Tucson back in '98. For 2 decades, I ran operations, contracts, distribution lines, while my younger brother Evan polished handshakes and took credit in meetings. I didn't mind. We were Reed brothers, family. Then Dad died, and everything changed. The reading of the will took place in the same boardroom where we'd closed million-dollar deals. The mahogany table gleamed, the coffee was cold, and our corporate lawyer, Mr. Delaney, adjusted his glasses before reading the lines that gutted me. All voting shares, trademarks, and management control of Reed Industrial Logistics are hereby transferred to Evan Reed. I sat frozen. No mention of me, just a single note at the bottom. Marcus to receive a consulting fee upon request. Evan leaned back, pretending surprise. "You okay, big brother? Dad must have trusted me to steer the ship." I stared at him. "You mean steal it?" "Harsh," he said, smirking. "You'll still have a role. Maybe community outreach." Laughter circled the table. Board members eager to please their new boss. My signature still hung on every logistics contract in the room. Yet I'd just become an accessory in my own company. The days that followed blurred. HR reassigned my email. Security badges deactivated overnight. Within a week, I was a visitor on property I'd helped build. Employees avoided eye contact, murmuring about a finance discrepancy Evan claimed he'd discovered. Then came the whisper that burned through my phone like wildfire. Marcus Reed under internal review for embezzlement. I called Evan. He answered on speaker, his voice calm, rehearsed. "This isn't personal, Marcus. Compliance flagged your name on some irregular transfers. We have to protect the company." "You planted them," I said. "Or maybe," he replied, "you're not as careful as you think." Click. That night I logged into the backup server I'd built years ago, the one only I knew existed. Evan had sealed my corporate access, but not the redundancies I'd hidden for data security. I scrolled through financial folders until one line stopped me cold. Vendor, Astor Holdings, payout $2.6 million. I'd never approved that vendor. The signature looked like mine, but the date was 2 days after Dad's funeral. I printed the page, stared at the forged ink, and understood. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Evan hadn't just taken my inheritance. He'd taken my name and used it to launder money through our father's company. I folded the papers, slid them into a manila envelope, and whispered the promise that would define the next year of my life. "You took my name, Evan. I'll take everything else." I didn't sleep that night. Every email I opened revealed more rot. Fake vendor contracts, duplicate invoices, shell accounts traced to Evan's old college friend, registered in Nevada, a classic laundering route. Each form bore my forged signature. By morning, I'd assembled a stack of printouts as thick as my forearm. I walked into headquarters at 8 o'clock sharp, through the same glass doors that still carried our father's name, Reed Industrial Logistics. The receptionist glanced up, startled. "Mr. Reed, Marcus, they told us you—" "I work here," I said, voice flat. Or did. I marched past security into the executive corridor. Evan's new assistant tried to block me, but I brushed past her and pushed open the corner office door, the one that used to be mine. Evan was behind the desk, scrolling through his phone, feet up like a CEO in a commercial. "Morning," he said, not even looking up. "Did you come to congratulate me or threaten me?" I dropped the papers on his desk. You forged my name on 6 contracts. You siphoned money through fake vendors and pinned it on me. You think compliance won't trace it?" He smiled faintly. "They already did, brother. That's the beauty of it. Every document points to you. The transfers came from your authorization code, your approval chain. You're sloppy when you're grieving. You used my access key after Dad's funeral." He finally looked up. "Technically, I used our key. Shared family property, right?" I wanted to hit him. Instead, I breathed through my teeth. "You're going to undo this." "Undo what?" He stood, smooth and practiced, his tone lowering to a mock sympathy. "You've been stressed, Marcus. Maybe you made mistakes you don't remember. You know how grief plays tricks." "Cut it, Evan." He leaned close, the smirk gone now, voice almost a whisper. "You think this is about money? It's about legacy. Dad spent 30 years cleaning up after your caution. I'm just taking what I should have been running all along." I stared at him, stunned. "You were never running anything. You just learned how to smile at the right people." He laughed. "And apparently, that's all it takes." The door opened behind me. 2 members of security stood there, stiff and awkward. "Mr. Reed," one said carefully, "we're going to have to ask you to leave." I turned. "Which one?" They didn't answer. Evan folded his arms. "Marcus, you're suspended pending internal investigation. You'll receive notice from legal this afternoon." My stomach dropped. "You set this up?" He nodded slightly. "And you walked right into it." They escorted me out through the lobby. Employees I'd hired avoided my eyes. Somewhere between the elevators and the revolving doors, the rumor had already spread. Marcus Reed, under investigation for fraud. Outside, the desert heat hit like a punishment. My phone buzzed. Emails, missed calls, one from HR confirming my access termination, then another from my bank. Unusual activity detected on personal account. Evan hadn't stopped at the company. He'd transferred part of the alleged embezzled funds into my personal account to complete the illusion. By noon, local business blogs had picked up the story. "Co-founder under fraud probe at Reed Industrial," Mom called that evening, voice trembling. "Marcus, tell me this isn't true. Evan said you—" "Mom, listen to me. He's lying." "Then why are they saying your name's on everything?" "Because he made sure of it," I wanted to scream. Instead, I said, "I'll prove it." "Please," she whispered. "Don't drag the family through court. Your father wouldn't want this." That broke something in me. Dad had died believing we'd carry his company together. Evan was now using that belief as a weapon. When I hung up, I stared at my reflection in the dark window, face tired, jaw tight, and whispered, "You want legacy, Evan? Fine. Let's make history." By sunrise, I'd booked a meeting with a retired forensic accountant named Tommy Banks and started sketching the plan that would take Evan apart, piece by piece, publicly and permanently. The first thing they took from me wasn't money. It was silence. My phone stopped ringing. Calls to colleagues went straight to voicemail. My company email returned with an automated message: "Access revoked per internal review." Overnight, I'd gone from co-founder to ghost. Tommy Banks met me the next morning at a diner off I-10. He was in his 60s, ex-forensic auditor for a federal contractor, gray mustache, worn leather notebook, and the calm of a man who'd seen every scam twice. "You sure you want to dig?" he asked. "Family cases are uglier than corporate ones." "He forged my name," I said. "He turned my father's company into his piggy bank." Tommy stirred his coffee. "Then we dig." For the next 2 weeks, we did. Nights blurred into data trails, wire logs, IP traces, document metadata. Every digital footprint pointed back to Evan's office, but the timing was perfect. He'd used my login credentials within hours of Dad's funeral, when access control was lax. It was deliberate. Meanwhile, the world shrank around me. Former clients stopped replying. One friend at HR texted, "They're saying you confessed." My stomach dropped. I hadn't spoken to anyone from legal. Then I saw it. A company-wide email Evan had sent that morning. "We are cooperating fully with authorities regarding irregularities discovered under Marcus Reed's oversight. Our leadership remains committed to transparency." He'd called me a criminal in front of the entire company. Mom wouldn't answer my calls. My cousin, who handled payroll, unfriended me on Facebook. My son Ben came home from college looking pale. "Dad, people are posting about you on LinkedIn. They're saying you stole from your own brother." "I didn't." "I know," he said softly. "But you have to do something. This isn't going away." He was right. I started sleeping on my couch, surrounded by printed documents and open folders. Tommy warned me to keep calm. "Don't confront him yet," he said. "You need irrefutable proof. You only get one shot." Still, the walls closed in. My savings were frozen pending investigative review. My credit score plummeted. HR reported me to the State Ethics Board, effectively blacklisting me from my own industry. One night, I drove to the old plant, the first warehouse Dad and I had built. The new security guard didn't recognize me. He called in over radio. "Got a guy here says he's Marcus Reed." Got a guy. Like I was just another trespasser. I stood there under the floodlights, staring at the company sign we'd painted ourselves 20 years ago. The R was chipped, the color faded, but the name still shone. Reed Industrial. That's when I realized I'd been erased, not fired. Every trace of my leadership, press photos, web bios, plaques, gone. Replaced by Evan's smiling face. He'd rewritten the history of our family in real time. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was surgical. He wanted me forgotten. Back home, I opened my father's old ledger, the one he'd used to track early deliveries and debts by hand. On the inside cover, Dad had written, "Trust is measured in ink and numbers, not words." I traced the line with my thumb. Numbers. That's what would save me. Not anger, not begging for fairness. Numbers. The next morning, Tommy handed me a USB drive. "Pulled from their cloud backup before they locked the server mirror," he said. "It's clean, time-stamped. Metadata shows every signature file was uploaded from Evan's account." "Enough to prove forgery?" He shrugged. "Enough to start a war." I slipped the drive into my pocket. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like control return. If Evan wanted silence, he'd get the loudest noise of his life. The first person outside the family who believed me was a kid too new to know fear. Her name was Lily Tran, 26, junior staff accountant at Reed Industrial for 8 months. She'd sent a cautious DM to my dormant LinkedIn. "Mr. Reed, I think something's wrong with the Astor Holdings payments. Can we talk off-site?" We met in a strip mall coffee shop where the air smelled like burnt espresso and copier toner. Lily slid a thin folder across the table without touching her latte. "Astor Holdings isn't a vendor. It's a mailbox in Reno." I traced the EIN, belongs to a dissolved landscaping company. But someone recycled the number, then mapped it to a new account last year. "All approvals show your name." I breathed through the anger. "They forged my sign-offs," she nodded. "And they did it smart. They cloned your e-approval stamp into a PNG overlay. Metadata shows it's the same 212 by 58 pixel asset, reused across 5 invoices." "Can you swear to that?" Lily's eyes flicked to the door, then back. If I'm leaving anyway, I might as well do it right. Tommy verified her findings that night and added 2 more nails. He pulled email headers from the cloud mirror. Aster invoices arrived from a domain created 6 days after Dad's funeral. SPF DKIM misaligned, and the originating IP block belonged to a shared WeWork in Summerlin, Evan's old college buddy's startup hub. Every road bent to the same circle. Good, Tommy said, tapping his pen. You've got a forgery mechanism, the overlay, a fake vendor, and an IP trail. What you need next is sunlight. Sunlight arrived with red lipstick and a battered field notebook. Rita Alvarez, investigative reporter for Channel 12's City Ledger, listened to my story without blinking, then asked for the drive. She took notes in fast, tight print. I'll need on-record confirmation from someone inside, someone at a bank, and a piece of open source any viewer can understand at a glance. Open source? I asked. Something verifiable without trusting you or me. Secretary of State filings, property rolls, unedited timestamps. The kind of proof that makes liars drown in their own denials. Rita started with Nevada's corporate registry. Aster Holdings LLC appeared as a domestic shell with a UPS store address and a managing member named Vaughn Price, Evan's poker buddy. She pulled the filing PDFs on camera, mismatched fonts, lazy cut and paste. Then she cross-referenced county assessor data to show that Aster's facility was a 6x8 mailbox. Lily, voice disguised and silhouette darkened, described the pixel overlay and the reused asset dimensions. Tommy showed the email headers, pointing to the chain that rerouted replies away from my domain into a catch-all Evan controlled. Rita booked her segment for the following Thursday. 6 p.m. She didn't promise exoneration. She promised viewers would see enough to demand questions. Evan must have sniffed the wind, because Monday morning my phone lit with a cease and desist from a downtown firm warning of defamatory allegations. Rita laughed when I forwarded it. Nothing scares a liar like a good highlighter. We needed a stage before the broadcast, somewhere Evan wouldn't expect a fight. The Chamber of Commerce breakfast would do, monthly schmooze fest, bankers, suppliers, and a rotating mic. Evan loved it. He'd be there selling stability. I arrived early with Tommy and Lily. We booked the side projector as sponsor content and hid our deck on a labeled USB that screamed boredom, Insurance Compliance Update Q2. Evan floated in at 7:55 with a politician's smile and a navy suit he'd never earned. He shook hands, posed for photos, and took the dais with an easy wave. Reed Industrial is stronger than ever, he said. We're committed to transparent leadership. On transparency, the moderator chimed, we have a brief compliance presentation before Kwanda. I walked up, the room tilting as 50 heads turned. Evan's smile froze, then reassembled. Marcus, he drawled into the mic. Didn't know you were joining us. 2 minutes, I said, and clicked the remote. Slide 1, Nevada Corporate Registry, Aster Holdings, UPS Mailbox, Managing Member Vaughn Price. Slide 2, Invoices, my forged signature overlay highlighted in red, the identical 212x58 pixel artifact circled 5 times. Slide 3, Email header chain, arrows from Aster's domain to the WeWork IP block. SPF fail, DKIM misaligned. Replies rerouted to a catch-all @read. Log.com, managed by admin_Evan. Slide 4, wire log excerpt. $2.6 million outbound in 4 tranches. Approved m.read. Timestamped hours I was logged out. Client VPN session from Evan's office IP. Murmurs swelled. then sharpened into the kind of silence that only appears when people decide whether to believe their eyes or their comfort. Evan took the microphone, smile flickering. "Impressive graphics, brother. But what you're seeing are legacy vendors and misinterpreted IT data. Our auditors are satisfied." "Then why?" I asked, clicking to slide 5. "Did Astor's EIN previously belong to a landscaping company dissolved in 2017? And why is your friend Vaughn the managing member?" Gasps. A banker in the front row sat forward. A supplier whispered, "That's Vaughn from the poker nights, right?" Evan's charm cracked. "Marcus is a disgruntled ex-employee. He's cherry-picking technicalities to sabotage us." Rita stood in the back, cameras up, her producer rolling. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The room was already splitting into before and after. A hand shot up. Janice from Western Freight, our oldest client. "We wired you $610,000 last quarter to pay Astor for cross-dock work. If Astor is a mailbox, who did the work?" Evan's jaw worked. "Contracted subfacilities." "Names?" Janice pressed. He hesitated a beat too long. In public, one beat is a confession. I clicked again. Slide 6, warehouse camera still, 2:13 a.m. Evan in our boardroom. The Astor invoice template open. A reflection in the window caught the PNG overlay box dragged into position. Tommy had pulled it from a forgotten security mirror no one had purged. Evan lunged for the remote. I stepped back. He missed and stumbled into the dais. A laugh snorted somewhere in back. The kind that ends careers. "Enough," he snapped. "This stunt ends now." The moderator lifted both hands. "We'll open the floor to questions after the scheduled broadcast on Channel 12 this Thursday." "Miss Alvarez?" Rita finally spoke. "We'll air documentable facts. If anyone has information, vendors, employees, you can reach me confidentially." She pointed to the chyron on the portable screen. Tip line, email, QR. Evan tried one last pivot. "Marcus, if you loved Dad, you wouldn't do this in public." I met his eyes. "If you loved Dad, you wouldn't have done it in private." The room didn't clap. It shifted, a weight tilting off my chest and onto his. Bankers pocketed phones without making eye contact. Suppliers texted their teams. A board member slipped quietly out the side door. By the time the bagels were cold, 3 vendors had pulled me aside with their own questions about odd routing instructions Evan sent after the funeral. Lily forwarded a fresh inbox dump. Admin_Evan changing approval rules the week before my suspension. Rita's producer mouthed, "We've got it." That afternoon, a courier delivered another cease and desist. The envelope trembled in my hand only because I was laughing. A bully that sees the tide turning always reaches for paper threats. Tommy patted the folder like a sleeping dog. "You've got proof that walks, registry, metadata, witness, video. Thursday, let him hang himself on live TV." I looked at the name on the building as we drove past the headquarters. The R chipped, the paint tired. A lie had stolen that sign's shine. Proof was going to take it back. And when proof speaks in public, even old friends stop pretending not to hear. By Tuesday morning, the story had gone national. Channel 12's expose was syndicated by 2 finance blogs and a regional business podcast titled Bloodlines and Balance Sheets. My phone didn't stop vibrating. Texts from ex-clients, old employees, even Evan's former golf partners trying to gauge which way the wind was blowing. The broadcast had shown everything. The Astor Holdings mailbox, Vaughn's name, the pixel overlay. Rita's narration was surgical. "Forgery is easy when trust is blind," she'd said. "The question now is whether family can still mean accountability." But what no one knew, not yet, was that Evan wasn't just laundering money. He was leveraging debt in my name. Lily called at 8:43 a.m., voice shaking. "Marcus, you need to check your Experian alert." I opened the app and froze. 2 new business credit lines, $1.2 million total, filed under Marcus Reed, personal guarantee. The borrower, Astor Holdings, subsidiary of Reed Industrial Logistics. "He's moving money again," I said. Lily whispered, "He's moving your credit. He's drawing before the banks realize you're not on the board anymore." The bank rep, when I called, spoke in the soft tone reserved for slow-motion disasters. "Mr. Reed, we show your electronic signature from the same DocuSign account you used last year. I haven't logged into that system in 4 months." "I see that," the rep said quietly. "But someone did, from your old corporate IP range, last Thursday. Evan was using my digital ID to open bridge loans against our receivables. Money he could pull before the company tanked, leaving my credit in flames." I called Tommy. "He's going to strip the company bare before indictment." Tommy exhaled. "Then we burn his runway." We went to First Desert Bank, where Rita's contact, bank officer Miranda Lopez, agreed to meet off-record. She'd seen the Channel 12 piece and already suspected fraud. "If you can prove forged authorization, I can flag the accounts internally before payout," she said. "But I need something solid, video, timestamp, or system mismatch." Tommy slid a drive across the table. "VPN logs from their own server. Timestamp 11:42 p.m. Friday. Marcus logged out. 11:44 p.m. Same credentials used from Evan's office IP. Same minute, same device ID." Miranda studied the screen. "That's felony-grade forgery." She typed a quick note. "Give me 3 hours." 3 hours later, every account tied to Astor Holdings was frozen pending investigation. When Evan tried to move the money that afternoon, the transfer bounced. By 6 p.m., his call hit my phone. "You think freezing those accounts hurts me?" he hissed. "You just tanked the company's liquidity." "It was never the company's liquidity," I said. "It was mine." He laughed, a brittle sound. "You've gone too far. You'll destroy everything Dad built." "No," I said quietly. "You already did. I'm just putting your name on it." That night, Rita texted, "Federal agents contacted me off the record. SEC Fraud Division is requesting your full evidence package. They're calling it the cleanest case file they've seen all quarter." But the twist didn't end there. The next morning, my phone rang again. Miranda from the bank. "They found something worse," she said. "Evan used your social security number to open a life insurance policy 6 months ago. Beneficiary, Reed Industrial Logistics." My throat went dry. "Policy value? $2 million. And the insured? You." For a long second, neither of us spoke. Rita's voice came over speaker when I added her to the call. "He insured you to cash out your death as company revenue," Miranda answered grimly. "That's one interpretation. The paperwork lists you as executive founder. If you passed, the payout would cover the company's debts, right before liquidation." I laughed once, short and empty. "He's built an exit strategy that ends with me dead." Tommy muttered, "Classic keyman policy abuse. He probably planned to fake records, terminal illness, accident. If the FBI sees that, it's over." We met at Rita's office, the walls humming with newsroom noise. She stacked the files like a prosecutor. "You understand what this means, right? Fraud, forgery, identity theft, insurance crime. It's federal." "I understand," I said. "I just want him to see the truth before they haul him away." Thursday came again, the day the network ran part 2 of the expose. This time the headline read, "Forged name, stolen credit, and a $2 million death policy. The Reed industrial scandal deepens. The camera cut between my interview and the frozen bank footage. Rita asked on air, "Marcus, what do you feel knowing your brother insured your life without consent?" I looked straight into the lens. I feel free, because now, when justice comes for him, it won't be about family revenge. It'll be about proof. The internet erupted. #Reed Brothers trended nationwide. Comment sections filled with outrage and disbelief. Shareholders called emergency meetings. At 10 p.m., a knock rattled my door. I opened it to see 2 federal agents holding a warrant. "Mr. Reed," the taller one said, "we're here to serve a seizure order on Reed Industrial Logistics and associated accounts." Behind them, in the dark parking lot, red and blue lights painted the walls, and across town, I knew exactly who they were arresting. I didn't smile. Not yet, because revenge, if done right, doesn't end in handcuffs. It ends when the truth finally costs the liar everything he ever stole. And I wasn't finished collecting. They cuffed Evan at 10:14 p.m. in the glass lobby of Reed Industrial, our father's portrait staring down from the mezzanine. The footage looped across every local news outlet. Navy suit, silver cufflinks, his mouth shaping a single word, mistake, as agents led him into the rain. I didn't sleep that night. Revenge isn't insomnia, it's clarity. I watched the video 3 times, then printed every headline and laid them across my kitchen table like trophies. Forgery, fraud, federal arrest, Reed Industrial collapse. The next morning, the FBI called me in as a cooperating witness. They'd recovered the servers, VPN logs, and insurance applications using my stolen identity. I signed testimony that tied Evan to every forged approval. Still, a piece of me needed more. I wanted to look him in the eye, not as brothers, but as the man he'd tried to erase and the man who failed. That chance came 3 weeks later. Rita texted, "Arraignment today. Federal courthouse downtown. You'll want a seat near the front." The courtroom smelled like paper and nerves. Evan sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, pale but defiant. When the judge entered, cameras clicked. He scanned the room and locked eyes on me. For the first time, there was no smirk, only confusion, as if he still couldn't compute how the world had turned against him. The prosecutor read the charges: wire fraud, identity theft, insurance fraud, money laundering. Each one hit like a hammer. The evidence Rita's team and the FBI had gathered was airtight. Metadata, emails, bank records, Lily's sworn affidavit. But the real blow came when Miranda from First Desert Bank took the stand. She held up the insurance policy, my name forged, Evan's signature as executive witness. "This policy was filed without the insured's consent," she said clearly. "The beneficiary is Reed Industrial Logistics, controlled solely by the defendant." Then the courtroom monitors flicked on. Tommy's video, authenticated by federal forensics, filled the screens. Evan at 11:44 p.m. in his office, using my credentials, dragging the Marcus Reed _signature.png onto a DocuSign template. He clicked submit. The timestamp froze at the bottom. The silence that followed felt biblical. Even his attorney lowered his eyes. Evan lunged forward. "That's not real. That's edited." The judge's gavel slammed once. "Sit down, Mr. Reed." From the back row, I heard Rita's pen scratch across her notebook, recording the moment she'd been chasing for months. When it was my turn, I stood at the witness stand and unfolded the original paper Dad had signed 20 years earlier. The founding partnership agreement. Half mine, half his. My proof of origin. "I built this company with him," I said to the court. "He stole my name, my signature, my credit, and tried to sell my death for profit. All I wanted was to make sure the truth spoke louder than his lies. Evan's jaw tightened. You always thought you were better? No, I said softly. Just honest. The prosecutor handed me a photo. Our father on the old shop floor, grease on his hands. What would your father think of this, Mr. Reed? I didn't hesitate. He'd tell me to finish the job. Outside, the reporters swarmed. Rita waited by the courthouse steps, microphone lowered. You did it, she said. No, I replied. The truth did. That night, I went home and opened the last envelope from the FBI, inventory of seized assets. Every false account, every offshore transfer, all frozen. But one item was listed separately. Reed Industrial Logistics, trustee, Marcus Reed, co-founder. The board had voted to restore my name as the rightful owner after Evan's removal. I stared at the document for a long time. I'd won back everything he'd taken. My name, the company, the legacy. But the real victory came when I walked into the office the next morning. Employees stood in the lobby, silent, waiting. No speeches, no applause. Just Lily stepping forward with a small smile. Welcome home, Mr. Reed. I looked up at the company logo above the reception desk. The new brass plate gleamed. Reed Logistics, integrity restored. Evan's trial lasted 2 weeks. The jury took 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. 12 years federal time. Restitution ordered for every dollar laundered. His face appeared on every business network under a headline that read, Brother's betrayal becomes federal lesson. When the verdict was read, he looked back at me one last time. You think you won? I leaned closer, keeping my voice calm. Winning isn't the point, Evan. Living clean is. He laughed once, hollow. You'll be alone forever. Maybe, I said, but at least my name still means something. 2 guards led him away. Rita's report aired that night. From forged signature to federal sentence, the fall of Evan Reed. She closed with my quote from the stand. The truth spoke louder. I sat on my porch, the desert air warm against my skin, listening to the crickets and the far-off hum of trucks from our new facility. For the first time in 2 years, I slept without locking my phone beside me. Revenge wasn't fire or fury. It was clarity, documented line by line until justice did the rest. And sometimes the sweetest sound isn't a confession. It's the click of a prison door closing on the man who tried to erase you. The week after the verdict, I visited my mother for the first time in nearly a year. Her hands shook as she poured coffee into the same chipped mugs we'd used since childhood. The kitchen still smelled like cedar and lemon oil, a time capsule from when family meant something simple. I watched the news, she said finally. Your brother looked lost. He chose the road, I answered. I just made sure it had an ending. She nodded slowly. You could visit him, you know. Prison changes people. I shook my head. Evan doesn't need me to visit. He needs to remember that some consequences don't fade with time. She didn't argue. We sat in silence, listening to the hum of the old fridge. I knew she wanted me to forgive him, to heal the gap, to be the older brother again. But forgiveness, I'd learned, isn't the same as forgetting. It's the decision not to let the wound own you. After a long pause, she said softly, Your father would be proud, not for what you did, but for how you did it. I smiled, the first honest smile in months. Then maybe I can start being proud too. When I left her house, I drove past the old shop, the one where Dad and I built our first loading ramp. The paint had peeled, the windows clouded with dust, but inside I could almost see the ghosts of who we were. Two brothers sweating beside a man who believed hard work could keep blood pure. Forgiveness didn't come easy. It came like rust lifting off steel, slow and quiet. Some nights I replayed the courtroom scene, the way Evan's voice cracked, and wondered if there was a version of us that could have been saved. But then I'd remember the forged signatures, the life insurance policy, the way he'd looked me in the eye while trying to bury me. No, there was no going back. Still, I didn't want hate to be the last thing we shared, so I wrote one letter, not to excuse him, but to close the book. Evan, I can't forgive what you did, but I can forgive myself for trusting you too long. You took my name and made it dirt. I took it back and cleaned it. That's the balance now. Marcus. I never sent it. I folded it once, tucked it into the original partnership agreement, and locked both in the safe at home. Some stories don't need an audience. They just need an ending. That night, I looked out at the dark Arizona horizon. Somewhere beyond the desert fences, Evan was counting time in a concrete cell. I was counting peace in my own home. And for the first time, both counts felt right. 6 months after Evan's sentencing, the world went quiet again. No reporters, no subpoenas, no phone calls that started with, "Mr. Reed, one more question." Just the hum of servers in the new office, the smell of oil and dust from the freight yard, and the sound of people working honestly. My people. I'd renamed the company Reed Logistics Group, removing the word industrial and the weight of everything Evan had corrupted. Our slogan was simple: integrity ships. It wasn't about branding. It was about memory. Every invoice, every contract, every handshake carried my signature. And this time it was real. One Friday evening, Lily dropped a folder on my desk. "Final audit results. Clean across the board," she said. "You've officially got the most boring books in the state." I laughed. After what we've been through, boring sounds perfect. She hesitated at the door. "You ever think about him?" "Every day," I admitted, but not with anger anymore. Just perspective. When she left, I opened the folder. The first page was a printout of our balance sheet. Positive cash flow, zero debt, growth projections strong. Underneath was something she'd slipped in without telling me. A copy of our Channel 12 headline, framed in thin plastic. Across the top it read, "From forged signature to federal lesson." In a note on the back, she'd written, "Thanks for proving truth still matters." I set it beside the old photo of Dad and me on the loading dock. In that picture, we were covered in grease and sunlight, too young to imagine betrayal. Dad had once told me, "The day you stop defending what's right just because it's inconvenient, that's the day you stop being a Reed." I'd lived long enough to understand what he meant. One afternoon, I drove out to the desert edge where the first warehouse used to stand. The concrete foundation was cracked, mesquite growing through the seams. I stood there with a thermos of black coffee and let the wind whip the dust around my boots. "This is where we started," I said aloud, "and where I finally stopped running from it." Forgiveness hadn't rebuilt my family, but it rebuilt me. Revenge didn't end with Evan in prison. It ended the moment I stopped needing him to know I'd won. I rebuilt the company not to outshine him, but to outgrow him. That night, back at my house, I opened the safe one last time. Inside was the partnership agreement, the letter I'd written and never sent, and my father's wrench, the one we used to tighten the first shipping clamp 20 years ago. I ran my thumb along the handle and realized I didn't hate Evan anymore. Hate was his legacy. Mine would be endurance. As I turned off the lights, I looked around at the house I'd paid for with clean work and clean hands. No forged papers, no stolen names. just the truth, and the peace it finally bought me. Before bed, I typed one line into the company's new About Us page, founded on trust, rebuilt on proof. Then I poured myself a drink, stepped out onto the porch, and watched the desert fade into night. Somewhere out there under another sky, Evan was counting years. I was counting blessings. For the first time in decades, my name was mine again. I'd lost family. I'd lost time. But I'd gained something stronger than both. Myself. I choose me. Tell me what you do. Drop your story and subscribe Revenge Stories Men U50 USA.